It's Coach Landry's way,
But,
right?
I mean, that was pretty much the way we approached it every year because, your realistic goal every year was, we set different goals, but, we wanted to be in the playoffs. Obviously, that was a realistic goal for us. Sometimes we'd want to win the NFC. That was a realistic goal. Sometimes we'd want to go to the Super Bowl. One year we made that a realistic goal, and we went to the Super Bowl and lost. I think that was in '75. And then in '77 we made the goal to go to the Super Bowl and win.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to go and win again the next year, and we didn't do it that year either. But, that's kind of the way the thinking was.
You know what? I don't know if I've got to ask you this later. I'll ask you now. I've got a Bud Light six-pack of questions that I ask.
Okay, go
but
ahead.
I'm going to use that in the next segment because I want to ask you this now.
All right.
You were born in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Yet you played for Dallas.
Right.
So did you grow up being a Steelers guy as a kid, or did you leave there quickly enough where the Steelers weren't part of your makeup?
No, actually, my family's from a little coal mining town up in eastern Pennsylvania. My mom and dad moved to Pittsburgh. They had me.
Uh-huh.
And then they ended up moving to Delaware. So actually, grew up
in Delaware.
In Delaware most of my life. So, no, I was never a Steeler fan. I was never an Eagle fan. I was never a Colt fan. And they were the three teams around us. I never really was a big fan. I always wanted to play.
Uh-huh.
And when I was a kid, I remember always looking at the football cards, see how big those guys were, to see how big I got to get to see if I could play.
Right.
But, no, I was never a Steeler fan.
Well, that's good.
Is that good?
I think so, yeah. I think it's good that you weren't a Steelers fan.
Yeah, I was never a Steeler fan.
I've just had, Drew Pearson grew up in the New York area. And
Jersey,
I think he's from Jersey. And, talks about his thoughts about teams there and then becoming a Cowboy. And I always wonder what it's like when you got drafted by Dallas. I was going to save this, but you're too fun to interview and you've got too many stories, so I'm going to go now. Well, when you got drafted by Dallas, did you have what was your perception of Texas when you got drafted? Had you been down here? Had you been to Dallas? Or was everybody on a horse and everybody had a steer before you got?
I went to school at Maryland.
Uh-huh.
The farthest I'd ever been was to North Carolina State.
Uh-huh.
I'd never been to Texas, and my impression of Texas, I thought I was going to see a bunch of cowboy hats, and I thought I was going to see people with horses, and I thought it was going to be hot. And I came down. I remember I thought I said, I'll get a suntan while I'm down here and go back to the
and look all good.
Maryland, look sunburned. Right?
Uh-huh, right.
And I came down here to the first time when I got drafted, came down here, and it was colder here than it was back east. I never saw anybody wear a cowboy hat. Where they took me, everybody was wearing coats and ties.
Yeah, you never went to Fort Worth, obviously.
No,
right?
I didn't get to go to Fort Worth.
Right, okay.
But the biggest thing I did when I was down here, you couldn't get Coors beer.
You couldn't get Coors.
Back there. So
okay. What? You couldn't get Coors here? Oh, no, you could get it here, but not up there.
You couldn't get it up there. So
okay, all right.
I got 2 cases of Coors and put it on the plane and took it home, and I was a hit when I got back there. So
this is where you're supposed to say also Bud Light.
Oh, yeah. Well, Coors, Bud Light, but, I mean, you wanted to hear the story.
Well, I know, but, I'll tell you what's funny. I tell you what's funny is I was thinking, I actually do prep, for interviews.
Right.
And I said to myself, Randy sounds like he grew up in Texas. And then I thought to myself, well, he's been here 34 years.
Yeah, I know.
So that kind of allows you to sound right. You're a Texan, aren't you?
Well, I tell you, where I grew up back east in Pennsylvania, they talked like this: the fence the cow he jumped over. They're Pennsylvania Dutch, so they talk with a funny accent.
Okay.
So then when I came to Texas, people from Texas talk with. So whatever I sound like, this is a combination of where I've been.
Okay. Does he sound like a Texan or what?
Thank you.
Just tell everybody you're a Texas native, and everybody will agree. Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Everybody, if you're here for 34 years, it counts. Randy White, ladies and gentlemen, from the All Pro Show, Love and Warren, Texas, and Grapevine, from the Cadillac stage. We'll come back next with our Bud Light six-pack of questions for Big Randy. Stay where you are.
Welcome back to the All-Pro Show here on Time Warner Cable Metro Sports. We are live from Love and War in Texas. We're going to be here until 8 o'clock. We're on the east side of the Grapevine Mills Mall talking Cowboys with Hall of Famer Randy White. Now, let me ask you this. We see this little scuffle on the sideline yesterday with Terrence Newman and Dave Campo. Did you ever get into it on the sidelines that was on television with Ernie Stotner?
No, I was smarter than to get in an argument with Ernie Stotner, I'll promise you. But, that never happened when I was playing. But there's some players that did, in the heat of battle, tempers flare, and, it happens. I don't think it's something that should be dwelled upon or made a bigger deal than what it is, but sometimes that happens.
Now, we know the defense has been pretty consistent here the last couple of games. The offense, though, they do 20-something type scores the first couple of weeks, and all of a sudden the last 2 weeks it seems like this team is struggling. Are teams figuring the Cowboys out as far as their offense?
Well, I'm not sure what it is, but I've learned in watching this Cowboys football team is the second that you start picking them apart and criticizing, they'll come out and have 500-yard game. So hopefully they'll turn this around. They're having a little trouble. They're struggling a little bit, getting themselves, finding their identity. What, are they a running team, passing team? And, hopefully if they figure that out, they're going to be in good shape.
Well, speaking of figuring out, let's say they don't figure it out. Should Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator, should he receive some criticism as well as Wade Phillips?
Everybody's going to get criticized if things aren't going right. I don't care. That's just the way it works. When things aren't going well, somebody's going to look for somebody to point the finger at, and the guy that's in charge is going to be the one that takes the heat. But if you watch him play, Garrett can't catch the ball. He can't run the right routes. I mean, all he can do is he can't block guys on the line of scrimmage. All he can do is put them in a position where they can succeed, and then it's up to the players to go out there and execute.
Exactly. Well, speaking of execution, this week it's the Raiders. They changed quarterbacks. It's now Bruce Gradkowski. They get a win over the Bengals, a winning team. They still have just 3 wins on the season, but maybe they have a little momentum coming into Cowboy Stadium this week.
Well, they had a big win last week. I think they had a real emotional weekend out there honoring the guys that had got killed in that boat thing. So, they got to travel to Texas. That's a long trip, and I hope this Dallas team is motivated and realize how important this game is also. I mean, going into the rest of the season, they get 10 days off after this game, so you want to enjoy that, and you enjoy it if you have a win.
It definitely makes the turkey taste better on Thanksgiving Day.
Makes everything taste better.
Randy White, more with Randy and Wally Lynn coming up next here on the All-Pro Show on Time Warner Cable Metro Sports.